You're listening to Intentional by Shay, ESSENTFLOW, a clarity-led space for small creators who are done forcing growth and ready to build with intention. I'm Shay, a mindful brand strategist and consultant, and I help creators align identity, messaging, and systems so that they can build sustainable brands without burning themselves out in the process. Now, this podcast is the evolution of everything I've built up until this point. It's where strategy slows down long enough to become honest, where clarity comes before consistency, and where growth stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you can actually hold on to. And if you're here, chances are you've been consistent before. You've shown up, you've posted, you've tried to stay visible even when it didn't feel good anymore. And somewhere along the way, you realized that discipline alone wasn't the answer. That's what ESSENTFLOW is about. Not doing more, not forcing momentum, but by learning how to move forward in ways that actually support who you're becoming. So take a breath with me. Let's get settled in and get into this week's episode. Welcome back, loves. I am so glad you are here today because we have such a great topic to talk about, and we're going to do a really deep dive into, and that is why staying consistent isn't the same as staying aligned. Because one of the most damaging ideas in creator culture is the belief that if you're stuck, it's because you're not consistent enough. Now, how many of you are actually guilty of feeling that way? I know I have on many occasions. That feeling of not posting enough, not showing up enough, not pushing through enough. And then for a long time, that belief feels logical because consistency does work at first. Consistency gets you seen. It builds momentum and it teaches you discipline. But what no one tells you is that consistency has a shelf life if it's not paired with alignment. Because eventually the problem isn't that you're inconsistent. The problem is that you're staying consistent inside a system that no longer fits who you are. This is where so many small creators get trapped. They're doing all the right things, posting regularly, following a strategy that once worked, and staying visible even when their body is asking for rest. I know I am extremely guilty of that. And from the outside, it looks like commitment. But from the inside, it feels like quiet exhaustion. And that exhaustion is confusing because nothing is technically wrong. You didn't stop caring. You didn't lose discipline. You didn't suddenly become lazy. What actually happened is more subtle and more important. You outgrew the version of the strategy that once supported you. Alignment shifts before consistency breaks. But most creators don't recognize that shift until burnout forces them to stop. This is why I'm careful when people say, just stay consistent. Because staying consistent without alignment isn't growth. It's self-abandonment with a productivity badge on it. When you're aligned, consistency feels steady. When you're misaligned, consistency feels heavy. And the hardest part is that misalignment doesn't always show up as resistance. Sometimes it shows up as compliance. You keep going because you've trained yourself to do so. You keep posting because the system expects it. You keep delivering because stopping feels scarier than continuing. That's not motivation. That's not the problem. The problem is that this is a relationship issue between you and the systems you're using to grow. Now, here's the pattern that I continue to see over and over again as a mindful brand strategist. Creators don't burn out because they lack discipline. They burn out because they stay loyal to strategies that no longer reflect their values, capacity, or season. And this is why I became a mindful brand strategist in the first place. Consistency is about repetition. Alignment is about integrity. And integrity asks better questions. Is this still true for me? Does this still fit how I want to show up? Does this system support my energy or drain it? Most creators never pause long enough to ask themselves those questions because the internet rewards output, not awareness. So they stay consistent and disconnected and burnt out and tired and exhausted. This is where ESSENTFLOW begins to matter. Because flow doesn't mean you stop showing up. It means you stop showing up in ways that cost your nervous system, that cost you your peace. Flow is not the absence of structure. It's the presence of alignment inside the structure. When alignment is there, consistency becomes sustainable. When alignment is missing, consistency becomes performative. And that's the difference no one teaches you. Now, if this section is already hitting all the right buttons, I want you to pause right here for a second and I want you to reflect on these 3 questions. Where am I being consistent out of habit and not intention? What am I maintaining that no longer feels honest? What version of me did this strategy originally serve? Now, these aren't questions that are meant to destabilize you. They're meant to bring you back into relationship with your growth. Because the goal isn't to quit. The goal is to realign before your body forces you to. Once you realize that consistency isn't the problem, the next question usually comes fast and a little panicked. Okay, so what does alignment actually look like in real life for me? Because the internet talks about alignment like it's a feeling you either have or you don't. Like one day you wake up inspired, peaceful, and magically in flow, and suddenly everything works again. But that's not alignment. That's mood. Aligned consistency is quieter than that. It's steadier, less exciting at first, and honestly, less visible to other people, which is why so many creators miss it. Aligned consistency doesn't feel like pushing, but it also doesn't feel like waiting. It feels like choosing what stays, what changes, what gets your energy, and what no longer deserves it. Most creators assume that alignment means starting over. New niche, new brand, new content, new everything. But alignment rarely asks you to abandon your work. More often, it asks you to edit your relationship to it. This is where strategy shifts from what should I do next to what am I willing to sustain? Because consistency that's built on pressure will always demand more of you. Consistency that's built on alignment will protect you. Here's the distinction that matters. In misaligned consistency, you ask, how do I keep up? In aligned consistency, you ask, how do I build in a way that doesn't require me to override myself? That single question alone changes everything. Aligned consistency is not about frequency first. It's about capacity. Not how often you can show up, but how often can you show up without resentment, depletion, or self-betrayal. This is why 2 creators can follow the same strategy and have completely different experiences. One feels energized, the other feels drained. The difference isn't discipline, it's alignment. Aligned consistency starts with honesty, and honesty is uncomfortable because it interrupts momentum. It asks you to look at things like how long you can realistically stay focused, what kind of output actually reflects your thinking, where you're over delivering to compensate for uncertainty, and which systems support your nervous system and which ones activate it. This is why aligned strategy can feel slower at first, because you're no longer performing productivity, you're building sustainability. And sustainability doesn't rush you, it stabilizes you. When creators begin rebuilding consistency through alignment, a few things almost always happen. First, their output becomes clearer, not louder, but clearer. They stop posting just to post. They stop explaining things they no longer believe in. They stop forcing themselves into formats that drain them. Second, their decision making improves. They no longer ask, will this perform? They ask instead, does this fit the direction I'm walking in right now? That's alignment in motion. And third, this is the part no one prepares you for. Their identity catches up to their strategy because misaligned consistency often keeps you stuck in an old version of yourself. I'm going to say that one more time. Misaligned consistency often keeps you stuck in an old version of yourself. So you keep showing up as who you were when the strategy was created, even though you evolved past it. Aligned consistency gives you permission to update the container without erasing the work. This is especially important for small creators and nano influencers because visibility grows faster than infrastructure. You build an audience before you build support systems. You gain momentum before you gain clarity. And then consistency becomes a demand instead of a choice. Alignment flips that dynamic. Instead of asking, how do I keep feeding this machine? You ask, what kind of system can actually hold me, sustain me? That's ESSENTFLOW. Flow is not about ease all the time. It's about fit. Fit between who you are, what you're creating, how you're delivering it, and what season you're in. When fit is there, consistency becomes natural. Not because it's effortless, but because it's coherent. Nothing is fighting itself, not even you. And when nothing is fighting itself, you stop leaking energy. That's the real gift of aligned consistency. Not productivity, not growth hacks, but containment. You are no longer pouring into something that can't hold you or sustain you. And if you're listening to this and feeling both relief and resistance, that's normal. I've went through it too. Believe it or not, I truly did. And relief is what I felt because something finally made sense. I felt resistance because alignment asked me to take responsibility for what I've been tolerating. And that goes for you. Eventually, relief will finally make sense for you. And you'll resist it because you're being asked to take responsibility for what you've been tolerating. So I want to pause here and I want to reflect. And I want you to think about this. I want you to think about where are you being consistent in ways that require you to shrink? What systems are you maintaining out of fear and not alignment? And if you rebuilt consistency around your actual capacity, what would that change? Now, you don't need to answer all of this today, but you do need to start listening, because aligned consistency doesn't announce itself loudly. It whispers first. And if you don't listen, burnout eventually shouts. So now that you understand the difference between consistency and alignment, and you're probably feeling a mixture of feeling relief and a little anxiety, the natural next question is, okay, I get it. Now, what do I actually do? Because knowing the problem doesn't always feel like progress. And knowing that misalignment is why consistency feels heavy doesn't automatically give you a map to navigate it. That's where this section comes in. This is the part where strategy meets practice and where ESSENTFLOW really shows up. The first thing to understand is that realignment rarely means starting over. In fact, starting over is the last thing you need unless your old systems are actively harming you. Most creators think that they need a clean slate, a rebrand, a new niche, fresh content calendar. And that's terrifying. But alignment is not about erasing the work you've done. It's about editing your relationship to it. And it's about deciding which pieces of what you've built actually serve your current growth and what pieces you can actually let go or restructure. To start, you need to do a quick inventory of your current consistency habits. Look at your content, your posting schedule, your systems, and your audience interactions. Which of these elements still feel like you? Which of them drain your energy? And which are just habits you've been holding on to out of fear of losing momentum or disappearing people? Now be honest with yourself. This isn't about judgment, it's about clarity. You need to be able to see what's actually serving you versus what's been serving the old version of you. Next, identify your non-negotiables. These are elements that align with your identity, your voice, and your brand values. They don't have to be glamorous or viral. They just have to fit you. Maybe it's the type of content you love creating, or a posting rhythm that works for your mental health. Maybe it's a specific system that you've built that makes your life easier. Whatever it is, these are the things that you protect first. Alignment is built from this foundation. If it's not sustainable for your energy or doesn't feel like you, it doesn't make the cut. This is where a lot of creators get tripped up. They think aligned consistency is about doing more, when it's really about choosing better. I hope you heard me when I said that. Aligned consistency is not about doing more. It's about choosing better. Now let's talk about what to shift. These are things you've been doing out of obligation, expectation, or habit that no longer fit you. They might still be popular strategies or things that got you initial growth. But if they leave you feeling depleted, they're misaligned. Maybe it's a content format that stresses you out, a posting schedule that triggers anxiety, or a platform you've been forcing yourself to show up on. Shifting doesn't mean quitting or failing. It means redirecting your energy to what actually grows you and not just your visibility. One of the most important parts of this process is permission. You need to give yourself permission to slow down, to restructure, to experiment. Permission to say no to what's no longer serving you, and yes to what truly aligns with your goals and your energy. Alignment is not about rushing. It's about steady, intentional movement. It's about respecting your body, your mind, and your creative process as integral parts of your growth, not obstacles to it. So let's layer in practical steps because clarity without action is just reflection. And you can start small. Pick one system or content stream that's misaligned. Ask yourself, is this sustainable for me this season? If yes, keep it and optimize it. If no, shift it. You don't need to overhaul everything at once. You only need to realign enough to feel relief and regain control over your energy. Even minor adjustments compound over time and create a little ripple effect across your work and well-being. Aligned consistency also requires reflection checkpoints. This is where many creators fail. They implement a change, stick with it for a few weeks, and then either slip back into old habits or abandon it altogether because it's not working. And yes, I did air quotes. Now, the difference with ESSENTFLOW is that we measure alignment, not just output. Did this change feel aligned with my energy, my voice, my values? Did it reduce friction, even slightly? Did it make creating feel a little lighter or more meaningful? If yes, that's progress. If no, tweak it. Don't force it. This is what moving from force to flow looks like in practice. Another layer is integration. Realignment isn't only about your systems and content. It's also about your audience and your messaging. If you've evolved as a creator, your audience needs to see that shift without feeling like you abandon them. This might mean subtle changes in tone, new formats, or revisiting your content pillars. You don't need a dramatic announcement every time you realign. Sometimes the most powerful changes are quiet, consistent, and deeply felt. Your audience will follow your authenticity if you lead with clarity and intention. So let's pause and bring this home. Aligned consistency is not a secret hack or a secret formula. It's a practice. It's a daily commitment to choose what fits, edit what doesn't, and protect your energy as fiercely as you pursue growth. It asks for honesty, courage, and reflection. But the payoff? You have sustainable growth, creative freedom, and a relationship with your work that finally feels like yours. And by the end of this process, you'll notice 3 key shifts. 1, you'll be creating with purpose, not pressure. 2, you'll maintain visibility without burning yourself out. 3, you'll feel grounded in your decisions, confident in your energy, and aligned with your growth, all at the same time. And if you remember nothing else, remember this. You do not need to start over to realign. You only need to listen to what still serves you. Shift to what doesn't, and protect the rest. That is ESSENTFLOW. That is moving from force to flow. So now that you know and understand the theory that consistency without alignment is draining and alignment without structure can feel chaotic, it's time to make it real. This section is all about actionable steps, practical prompts, and a mindset shift that lets creators implement aligned consistency without losing themselves. Because knowing the why is only helpful if it shows up in the how. The first step is reflection. Before you tweak systems, content, or schedules, you need to check with yourself. So grab a notebook or open a note on your phone and answer these questions with brutal honesty. 1, which parts of my current workflow actually support my energy, creativity, and goals? 2, which parts feel forced, exhausting, or misaligned? 3, what am I doing out of habit, fear, or obligation rather than intention? And 4, if I could redesign my strategy with only the tools and systems that energize me, what would that look like? Answering these questions is the foundation of aligned consistency. They give you clarity about what to keep, what to shift, and where to focus your energy. ESSENTFLOW is about making space for your growth, not packing yourself together into old habits. Now let's translate reflection into structure. One of the easiest ways to lock alignment into consistency is to build a weekly review routine. This is a 30 to 60-minute session where you review what worked, what didn't work, and how your energy responded to your work. Ask yourself these 3 questions. 1, did this system support me this week? 2, did my content feel authentic and aligned? And 3, did I feel energized or depleted by my workflow? The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness and gradual adjustment. By checking in weekly, you catch misalignment before burnout even sets in, and you reinforce the systems that actually work for you. This turns alignment into a practice, not a one-time decision. Another layer is mapping your capacity. Most creators fail to stay consistent because they don't account for their actual energy limits. You can schedule posts, brainstorm content, or batch videos all you want, but if you're ignoring your nervous system, it will force you to stop. Map your real capacity by tracking how long you can work without stress, what types of tasks drain or energize you, and when your focus peaks during the day. Use that insight to shape your content rhythm. Aligned consistency respects your energy. It doesn't demand that you override it. Now let's talk about audience alignment. Consistency doesn't exist in a vacuum. Your work impacts your audience. When you shift systems or content to align with your energy, you might worry about losing momentum or confusing your followers. ESSENTFLOW teaches creators to be transparent in small ways, without over-explaining. For example, you can subtly change your posting format, timing, or content pillars while keeping your core message intact. Your audience will follow authenticity. They will recognize energy and intentionality over performative output every single time. Finally, we layer in flow-based strategy adjustments. This is where creators move from theory into practice. They identify one system or habit that feels heavy or misaligned and decide today if it needs to be optimized, paused, or stopped. Commit to a weekly reflection routine, even if it's just 15 to 30 minutes. Make it a non-negotiable. Adjust your content calendar or workflow based on your mapped capacity. Integrate aligned decision slowly. Don't try to overhaul everything at once. ESSENTFLOW is a ripple, not a tidal wave. And check in with your audience in small, authentic ways to ensure your message still lands, even as your workflow evolves. As you implement these prompts, you'll notice subtle but profound shifts. Work that once felt heavy starts to feel lighter. Decisions that used to paralyze you become easier. Momentum shows up naturally because your energy is aligned, not because you're forcing it. This is the essence of moving from force to flow. And as you move through this process, remember the guiding principle: clarity before consistency, alignment before output, and flow before force. Each step in this practice is about reclaiming your energy, strengthening your systems, and showing up as your most intentional self without burning out. Before we close this episode, take a moment to write down your next 3 small actions. They don't need to be huge. Maybe it's a shift in your content timing, a tweak to a workflow, or a 15-minute reflection block. Small aligned steps compound over time, creating momentum that feels effortless because it supports and is supported by who you actually are. By the end of this, you'll feel grounded in your workflow, confident in your creative decisions, and aligned with your growth path. ESSENTFLOW isn't just a method, it's a living practice. It's how small creators and nano influencers move sustainably, stay connected to their energy, and grow without losing themselves. Take a deep breath, my love. You've just unlocked aligned consistency in action. Flow is possible, and now you have the tools to live in it. You've been listening to Intentional by Shay, ESSENTFLOW. If today's episode gave you clarity, confirmation, or language for what you've been feeling, that was intentional. ESSENTFLOW is built on the belief that sustainable brands start with alignment, not pressure. When identity, messaging, and systems are clear, consistency stops being something you force and starts being something you can sustain. Thank you for choosing to build with intention. Until next time, stay clear, stay aligned, and stay in your ESSENTFLOW. See you in the next episode.